Alright, so in this step, we're going to take your outline and turn it into paragraphs. And I have a way I'd recommend you do this. There's not one right way to do any of this, but here's just my recommended way. And what I would recommend is starting a new document and starting with a blank space and then using your outline to transfer information from your outline to the essay. You can do it a different way. You could actually reformat your outline into paragraphs, but every time I do this, the easiest way for me to do it throughout my whole school career was to do that outline first and then start a new document. And when you're working on the computer, the nice thing is you can just copy and paste sections of your outline, and then any words you need to type, you just kind of type in between. So here's what I would do. If you're working on you bring up your outline for your essay, right? So you got it, it's in from Gaggle. One trick that you can do is up here, this little blue button, Docs Home, will take you to Docs Home. But if you click it, I believe it's going to like navigate away from this. So what I would do is hold the control button on your keyboard and click Docs Home. When you click Docs Home, you'll see a cool page. So this page is a bunch of your documents. It's a little confusing to look at, and the reason I just moved my face up a little bit was so that you could see this button right here, this little plus icon. If you hit this plus icon, it's for creating a new document. Now the other way you could have done this would you could have gone back to your digital locker and created a new document that way. But either way, this is your digital locker. It's just like the Google view of your digital locker. So if you click Create a New Document, it's going to bring up an untitled document. The first thing you want to do is click up here and enter a new document name, like Essay Paragraphs, and hit OK. Now you've got, what you'll have eventually is in one tab somewhere along the line, you have your outline, and one tab somewhere over there, you have your paragraphs. And it's cool, you can go bounce back and forth between them, but the best way would be to be able to see them at the same time. Here's how you could do this. Take your outline tab, this tab, get your mouse right here, click it and drag it down. What that does is it turns it into its own window. Now it's its own huge window, which is great, except it's covering the entire screen. So if you click and drag at the top of the window and drag it over to the corner, you'll see it makes kind of like this ghost-like rectangle, and that'll split the screen sideways. Then go back to that document, Essay Paragraphs, click and drag that one down also. So click and drag down. Now that's its own window also. And the other way you can split things, you could either click at the top and drag it over to the side here, or you could hold the Windows button, the little wavy squares at the bottom of your keyboard, and tap the side arrow in the direction you want it to split. So in this case, I'm going to tap it to my right. So side arrow. Now it's half and half. If I go back down to my Google Chrome icon down here below, which is probably off the camera for you, I can find my example outline. So now I've got my outline and my paragraphs together. And so what you're doing when you turn an outline into paragraphs is taking these sections of your outline and making them paragraphs. And for you, every numbered section, as long as you haven't messed with the formatting of the outline, is going to be its own paragraph. So in the intro paragraph, you're going to include both your summary and your thesis statement. Now for most people, this is the easiest one to do because your summary probably stands by itself, and that your summary probably doesn't need any extra words to make it make sense to a reader because you just wrote a good summary. So what I would do is select this summary right here and copy this and then click over here and paste it in. Now I might do little things like deleting some like extra edits I had in here, but this is basically it. This is how I'm going to start. I mean, for any reader, they come along, they pick up this paper and they say, Call the Wild by Jack London. It's about a half St. Bernard, half Husky sled dog named Buck. It's a good way to start an essay. You're just going to explain to your reader what the book's about that you're going to be writing about. And then you're going to throw them your thesis statement because you'll have explained your book here, so the reader's like, okay, I got an idea what the book's about. Now, as an essay, like bring something to the table, like make an argument, make a reason to read this thing. So then you bring your thesis statement in. Right here, you select the theme, Control C to copy, and then over here, Control V to paste. Now you might add a transition here. It might be weird to just go from the summary to the theme, so you might say something like, in the text, it becomes clear that the major theme of Call of the Wild by Jack London is if you put your mind to something, you can do it. It's all about determination. One way, and then you back it up with your big ideas. That's the first paragraph. Now when you're doing paragraphs in an essay, you can choose two ways to format it. One is you can hit the tab button at the beginning of each paragraph that indents it, or another formatting method is to tap enter 2 times at the end of each paragraph and just put a blank space in between. Doesn't matter which one you choose, just be consistent so your essay looks nice and neat at the end. Okay, so let's go on and take a look at this. This is where it gets a little tricky. We're going to put all the stuff in number 2 into your first paragraph. So all this stuff right here goes into the first paragraph. Okay, so the very first thing we have to do is start by introducing this first element of the text that created the theme, important decisions and actions. Well, we can almost take this and write it word for word, but it'd be kind of weird if we did. So watch what we can do. We can say something like, one element of the text that created the theme were important decisions and actions. Now, if we just leave it with the important decision and actions, that's not totally clear. Like important decisions and actions, like by who? Like by, I don't know. So by the main character in this case. So we said that were made by the main character. I'm writing in the passive voice. I'm aware of that, and we could go back and we'll revise that later. So I got my first element of the text that created the theme. One thing I like to do is when I'm going from an outline to paragraphs, I like to check off things as I do them. And I should have probably done that up here. So summary, intro, paragraph. So my summary is done. If I select the summary, and I believe I go to Format, Strikethrough. You can also do Alt-Shift-5, but that's kind of an awkward key command. I'm done with that part. My thesis statement, that's also already in my outline. Format, Strikethrough, I'm done with that part. I added my first element of the text that created the theme, important decisions and actions. Format, Strikethrough, I'm done with that part. Now it says explain part of the book in your own words. Buck wasn't the strongest dog. He worked and worked every day. He trained super hard to get muscle. So I can't start by saying Buck wasn't the strongest dog. That's kind of a weird way to start. But usually what you can do is kind of introduce where something happened in the text. I might say like early on in the story, it was clear that Buck wasn't the strongest dog. And I can use the phrase Buck without telling who Buck is because I already wrote a summary for my reader that explains who Buck is. So earlier on in the story, it was clear that Buck wasn't the strongest dog out of the dogs he was surrounded by. Now I've kind of explained this to my reader. Okay, cool. However, he worked and worked every day and trained, and this is where I might start writing more of an essay voice, like trained super hard, yo. Might not be the best thing for a formal essay. I might say something like he trained incredibly hard. That might be better word choice for an essay than trained super hard, which I know is something like I would probably say to you if I were talking to you, person to person, but it's not how I'd write something probably if I'm trying to be formal in an essay. I try to think of like a more kind of formal word. So he trained incredibly hard to gain muscle. So what I need to do at first is describe the transformation from the beginning, where Buck wasn't very strong, to the end, and talk about how determination led him to do that. So what I might say is, he worked, strongest dog, he worked hard to gain muscle. This quotation is describing how he started off really strong, or really small. So I might say something like, at the beginning of the text, it describes how, and then I can just copy my quotation, copy, and paste. He was not so large, he only weighed 400. And what I did there is blend my words with the text evidence. And I'll fix my errors as I go. Now I've got to provide my analysis. It says, with all that determination set his mind to something, he was able to pull 1,000 pounds for at least 5 feet. Well, this analysis doesn't match that. And when I did this initially, maybe I didn't quite think about what I was analyzing. So what I might say for my analysis is something about like, this shows that in order for Buck to become strong, he needed to have lots of determination. And this relates to the theme. So then I go on to my next quotation. So what I'll do here is I'll format, strike through, format, strike through, because I'm done with this. So now I got to think about, okay, so Buck's master would place bets on Buck's ability to do things. So if I just throw that out there, though, I'm not really explaining how Buck's determination ended up leading him to be successful. However, I could say something like this. Eventually, because of his determination, Buck got much stronger. So much so that, and now I'm ready to, Buck's master would place bets on Buck's ability to do things. At one point, comma, when Buck earned $16,000, cop, put that in, by third, he made it possible for his master to pay off certain debts. This shows how Buck was able to accomplish great things by being determined. So in this case, I just added my analysis. So I've got all three parts here too, so I can strike those out also, format, strike through. In this case, my first paragraph is done. I'm going to do the enter method, and what I would do is go on and do the exact same thing for the next two paragraphs. Go ahead.